Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and since the last time I tried Blade Vortex has to be something like 6 months to a year ago, I thought it was about time to see how the skill goes these days, since it has undergone a lot of changes as well as a lot of skills undergoing area of effect nerfs or changes in general. And this time around I decided to make a character on beta because I was trying to test a starter version of a Blade Vortex, since I thought it could be a pretty good starter, and I decided to go with an Inquisitor full conversion Ellie BV, or Blade Vortex. And so far it's been going pretty damn good, and Blade Vortex has some pretty lackluster area when you start the character out, but that doesn't really matter too much. It seems to clear okay at the lower levels when there's not much pack size, and then it ramps up a bit as you level up, as the gem levels up, you get the appropriate area on the tree. It's still nowhere near what it used to be, and the way Blade Vortex functions is nowhere near as good as it used to. It ticks a lot slower, there's 20 stacks instead of 50. You can't quite do as many versatile things with it, but it is still a very fun skill and quite effective it seems, as a starting character as well. So this version is an Inquisitor, it is a full conversion, so all of our fizz gets converted to elemental, and it seems to have quite a lot of damage so far on the beta, probably one of the most damage heavy or centered builds I've played on beta. So that really did surprise me, and the clear speed was quite nice indeed. This is me taking on Uber Izaro for the first time at something like level 74 I think, with pretty pathetic gear. The only thing of value I'm wearing is a Taste of Hate, and that I kinda need because I have such shit life at the moment and defenses, considering I have terrible gear with level mid-70s or so. But all in all, still pretty much just completely shit on Izaro with a 5 link. The single target was pretty damn immense, and it then let me get my Uber Lab Ascendancy, which gave me a whole bunch more damage, and then I started to farm quite a few little Itzeris. And Blade Vortex has always been a pretty good boss killer and specialist, because you just wind up your stacks, stand next to a boss, and completely destroy them. And this has been no different of an experience. Once I've leveled up a bit and got the right passives, normal Itzeri just falls right over, and this build so far seems to be the one that has the most damage potential by far of my builds that I've made on beta, as long as you keep scaling your gear, appropriately upgrading, getting the right jewels and passives and everything, you definitely can pull extremely huge damage numbers. I'm talking in the millions, and it should be very Shaper, Guardian, and Uber Itzeri viable, as long as the balance keeps coming in for all of your defenses, offense, and all that sort of stuff. But the character definitely performs well off of very humble beginnings with little gear, and seems to be a pretty decent starter choice for 3.0 I think, as long as the patch notes don't somehow shit on Blade Vortex or Inquisitor or early conversion, which is entirely possible, and hopefully we'll see that in the next few days when we get the patch notes. But if nothing changes, then it's a good starter I think. The only real problem is Templar doesn't get a Blade Vortex early on, doesn't get a crit strike gem early on, doesn't get a few things that you do need for the build early on, so you don't really get to play Blade Vortex until about level 30, and then, as I mentioned, it takes quite a bit of ramp before Blade Vortex truly feels good, because early on you don't have pretty much any crit, you have bad area, you have bad cast speed, you have bad movement speed. It really is a build that ends up coming together as you progress, as you get more gear, and as you fine-tune the machine that is a Blade Vortex character. And when it does get to that level, which we're pretty close to right now, it really starts to destroy things. And it is ultimately the character that seems to have been least affected by boss increase health on beta, at least of the ones I've played so far. So I will go over what the character takes and do a little bit of a mini guide here, but it may be included in a future starter build video as well. So I will say right off the bat, there is quite a lot about this character that can be customized to fit your needs, or just preferences in general. You can make certain choices of gear here or there, even on the conversion front of what we're doing to fully convert from Fizz to Ellie. So by no means do you have to copy what I'm doing and use absolutely everything I'm using. There are quite a lot of choices involved. So to start with, we are currently level 81 on this character, Templar, and he went Inquisitor of course because of the mainly because of inevitable judgment. If you don't know what it is, it means that it will ignore all elemental resistances on the enemy when you crit. So a Shaper, for example, will have no resistances when you crit him, and that means you don't really need to go for any penetration or Ellie resist negatives on your build. And the principle behind the character is to be playing Blade Vortex, a purely physical spell that then gets converted completely to elemental through two uses here, which is physical to lightning, 50% goes to lightning, and then physical to cold with Hrimsorrow, where 50% goes to cold. And then with Hatred, we end up using and added fire. You get a pretty big split of your damage from cold, lightning, and fire. Now, ultimately, in best in slot setup, added fire gets dropped for crit strikes, but at the moment, it's fine right where it is. Another option for actual conversion is a Moonbender's Wing Axe. If you'd rather do that instead of a Fizz to Lightning, but from what I've seen, I think Fizz to Lightning should be our biggest damage increase, and using Hrimsorrow gloves. As well as that, if you really want to make a character like this, you can also convert 40% to cold over here, thus skipping one of these two options. But for this one specifically, it's a bit too far away and fairly inefficient. Now, other things to mention are my life is currently 4,300 without anything too special as far as gear is concerned, and it will go a lot higher. And the tree in the end I have made has about 200% life. Now, you could probably even go higher if you want, and you can also factor in mind over matter into your build. But currently I have not done that because I really do want to reserve my mana with Hatred, which is a huge damage buff, and then Blasphemy Warlords. So Warlords is most of our sustain for mana and life, and when we have both of those reserved, we really don't have much mana left. So you'd have to get some Enlighten and Mana Reservation going if you want to keep both of these and then use Mind Over Matter. I recommend, if you want to try Mind Over Matter, because you will get a lot tankier, especially with Blasphemy Warlords, that you drop Hatred, maybe use Herald of Ice if you really want, but that's probably entirely up to you. And then you can really combo these with a Pledge of Hands as well and become quite a tanky beast in the end, but you will be losing quite a bit of damage from Hatred. And then ultimately the Pledge of Hands playstyle is pretty awkward because you don't have Shield Charge, Fortify. You may have to Fortify with a Flicker Strike or a Leap Slam. It's a much more awkward playstyle, but it's something entirely up to you guys if you want to try it. Now, besides that, what's important is Instruments of Virtue. That combos well with our Shield Charge. So every time you Shield Charge, you get attack speed and cast speed. And every time you cast a spell, you get extra spell damage. As well as that, Augury of Penitence is a straight large multiplier to elemental damage. A monster currently takes 0% increased elemental damage, so when it takes 16% increased, which is a big radius around you, that's a straight 0.16 multiplier, so it's a big node as well. In the end, the playstyle is just fire up some BV. That is some terrible frames. Fire up some BV and charge at things. You can only get up to 20 stacks, and currently to help achieve that, I do have one duration node over here. I think that's roughly all you need. If you're using Spell Echo, you get it charged up pretty quickly. And the other links are Added Fire, Spell Echo, Fizz to Lightning. Currently I'm running Area, though that is preference based. You really don't have to. You can run Crit Strikes instead. And then we're subbing in Conk Effect instead for our actual single target. Otherwise, you can also put in Ellie Focus for single target, but Conk Effect currently works just as well. And ultimately, we want Controlled Destruction in there somewhere as well. And I'll show you the path of building link for optimal DPS in a second. But real quick, I'll just go over our current gear choices. We're using a dagger with some attack speed, spell crit. You can try and get spell damage, damage to spells, and crit multi. All of the above goes really nicely on a dagger. Doriani's Catalyst is probably a really good starting point, which would be hard to replace in this build, but they're fairly expensive, especially early on in a league. Just a shield, try and get some life, spell damage, crit, resists, whatever you can on it. Life resists on a helm, life resists and some good movement speed on some boots. Hrimsorrow, that's a staple for me anyway. Life resists, maybe some cast speed, maybe some mana regen would go nicely on a ring. You do need dexterity somewhere, so you can use Blade Vortex, and most of that is coming from my amulet, but a bit from the ring as well. And then the amulet itself currently has life, cast speed, which is really good for quality of life of casting your Blade Vortex, and then try and get some crit multi as well. Currently this is all pretty budget shit gear, so you know, it's not too end game there. And then also using a Belt of the Deceiver, which is a pretty solid belt for offense and defense. Ultimately, I probably wouldn't keep it. I'd try and get a lot more life on my belt, but for now, it's a really good starting belt. And then as for a chest, I've just got a hybrid here, which is life, armor, resist. Ultimately, an incandescent heart is best in slot for us, but it's really hard to also get your chaos resist up at the same time. Otherwise, a carcass jack is a really good choice, or any rare with a lot of life seems to go pretty damn well. And then we have an Atziri flask, which is a really big damage gain for us. We go from 2900 to 3700 currently, because you get bonus, I think, from both the chaos, the fizz and the elemental, it seems. So yeah, it seems pretty damn worth it. Taste of Hate is absolutely huge for us for defensive and offensive wise, so try and get one of those as soon as you can if you're going to commit to this build full term. Before you get one of those, you probably want to run either a silver flask or a granite flask, depending on what you want more as offense or defense, but Taste of Hate is very handy for survival. Diamond Flask, absolutely huge for our crit since it's not currently very big, and then a Quicksilver Flask with movement speed ideally, which will help you shield charge around a lot faster. Your shield charge is attached to quality culling strike if you can, I guess, for some attack speed, faster attacks, and fortify. And then we have a cast when damage taken, Vile Haste, increased duration, and Immortal Call setup. We have Flame Dash for the occasional jumping over a ledge and shit, Ward's Mark and Blasphemy. And then our power charge setup is Orb of Storms, increased crit, power charge on crit, and Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge got reworked so that it just guarantees you a proc whenever you use this much mana, which is why mine is only at level 3, because my Orb of Storms costs 37 mana, and this shit is 26 mana, so every time I pop Orb of Storms, I get this Arcane Surge buff, which is pretty nice. You can customize it to fit your needs. If you want to proc it every 2 casts and make it a higher level, then that's up to you. But this is where I've landed on a sweet spot for now. And then power charge on crit, and that's how you get your power charges for the build at the moment. Now, I will leave you guys with a path of building link in the description of the YouTube description if you want to customize the build and play around with the settings and all that. Entirely up to you. This shows the damage with 20 blades, and to actually get the build into your path of building, you have to download it to start with. You then import from Pastebin. So I generate a code over here. You then hit import from Pastebin, put the code in there, and then import over here. It's that simple, and then you can play around with everything I'm doing here and see exactly what you want to change in the build, and just test DPS numbers. And I've got some, you know, ideal gear here going, like the best jewel possible for yourself, just the highest DPS ring that you'd like, which is an opal with a Hysteria craft, I think that is. Incandescent Heart is the highest DPS thing, but otherwise a Carcass Jack or whatever else. Just what kind of shield you're looking for, a best in slot dagger over here. You can play around with Pledge of Hands. And then I've also got the actual skill links for you to mess around with too. Currently I have it plugged in for... This is just our clearing, so 20 stacks with a clear, which involves Echo, crit strikes, increased area, controlled destruction, fizz to lightning, and blade vortex. And then when you go into single target on this sort of build, you take out increased area, and you probably take out crit strikes, I believe, chuck in Ellie Focus and Conk Effect, and all of a sudden you've doubled your damage. So that's our single target setup, and the beauty about a build like this is against Shaper or Guardians, and the damage is hardly any different versus bosses as it is to normal content. So when you just play around with the DPS against normal content, that's pretty much the DPS you're going to be getting against a Shaper. And this build hits really hard with a lot of lightning, a lot of cold, so you should be chilling, freezing, shocking, even high-end bosses. And the ultimate setup, if you really want to get into it and play around with the best in slot gear, ends up hitting something like 6 million DPS, and that's still without a lot of other stuff that I haven't factored in. But I'll link this to you guys if you want to play around with it. So far, I'm saying it looks like a pretty damn good starter build. I might try it myself as my first build. I still haven't decided yet and waiting for patch notes. Up to you guys if you want to try this sort of thing and customize it to your own needs. Hope you've enjoyed the video and the character. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.